Debate. Mr McMillan. Thank
you very much, Presiding Officer. Presiding Officer, at the outset, I'd like to thank my friend and colleague, Annabelle Ewing, for securing this important debate. The campaign, which has been successful so far, proves that when parties actually work together, they can encourage and force some political change. Now, clearly, in this Parliament, every party deserves some credit, except, that is, for the Conservatives. Now, the Tories, either willingly or just through some blind dogmatic approach, seem to have forgotten how important EU nationals actually are to Scotland and also to the rest of the UK. And it has been a complete and utter embarrassment to actually instigate this settled status fee. Now, Tom Arthur, in his contribution earlier on, spoke about the history of the EU project, and I can't agree with him any more on that, because it's so important to actually to understand and appreciate why the EU has came about and how important it actually was for that to be the case. Now, the fee was to be £65. Now, someone claimed that wouldn't actually break the bank for many people, but, Presiding Officer, the fee could be 65 pence for all I'm concerned. It's not the issue of how much it was. It's about the messages sent out to people. It's sent out two messages to EU nationals. First of all, they weren't wanted. And secondly, they were going to become a bargaining chip in the shambolic EU negotiations being led by the worst Prime Minister in history. They were to be used to tell the EU negotiators that they will be tough in the talks. Now, what the Prime Minister and her acolytes have done is actually to turn Britain into a laughingstock. Now, the so-called Great Britain that the Tories so proclaim that they actually support and love, will actually have the reputation that isn't great across the EU and beyond. The Prime Minister and her revolving door of ministers, apart from Chris Grayling, of course, actually are telling people that Britain is uncaring. It was claimed that in the past that the UK's negotiating skills have reduced somewhat by becoming a member of the European Union. Now, it certainly appears to be true in this case. The EU isn't kicking us out, but the UK seems actually hell-bent on going out, leaving as sour a taste as possible to make things worse for the future. Sure.
Tom Arthur.
I wonder if Mr McMillan would agree with me that a fitting motto for the UK government in the whole Brexit process would be "Stop the world, Britain wants to get off."
Stuart McMillan.
I absolutely agree, Mr Arthur, absolutely agree. Now, Presiding Officer, who genuinely thought that imposing a charge on people who are our neighbours, our friends, our family members, our colleagues, our active members of society, teachers, nurses, doctors, engineers, footballers, rugby players, and many, many more, was a good thing? Who genuinely thought that by imposing a charge on EU nationals was actually going to build up some goodwill during the negotiations? Brexit is serious. It will have a huge effect upon the lives of everyone living in the four nations that currently make up the UK, as well as the people living in the EU 27. This isn't a game of chicken. These are real people with real lives and real futures. I don't for 1 minute think that all the Tories in this Parliament actually supported what was to be deployed. They will have toed the line to support the London Masters. Now, I get that, I understand it. I understand the fact we've got internal party discipline. Every member in this chamber will get that. However, on something like this, forcing people who live here, and many of them have been here for decades, to actually pay for the privilege to remain in their own home, to remain with their families, to remain in their communities, to remain in their job, was the worst kind of dog whistle politics. Now, Scottish Tories didn't need to sign up to that. They could have been different, but they proved that whether it's in Scotland or whether it's across the UK, the nasty party is well and truly back. I truly welcome the U-turn by the Prime Minister on the £65 fee, but the damage has been done. I'm a firm believer that prevention's better than the cure. Every government will make mistakes, and this one was a howler of epic proportions. The sour taste will linger for many years, long after Brexit. And this is in addition to the Windrush scandal, telling the population that if you're different, you will remain different. That stinks and is deplorable. I understand why people are rightly angry, and I understand why people like former MSP Christian Allard were so vocal about this scandal. And every Tory who supported the scheme should hang their head in shame. And my final comment on this, Presiding Officer, is that the Tories need to apologise to our friends, our neighbours, and every EU national living and contributing to society, including to the staff of this Scottish Parliament. Thank you very much.
I call Jamie Green, please.